Welcome to our deep dive all about squash. We're going to be taking a look at the health benefits of different types, and I've got some really delicious recipe ideas to share too.
Going into this, I really thought this was going to be a pretty simple topic.
hmm
But wow, was I wrong.
Yeah, squash can be pretty surprising. It's really overlooked, but it's really a nutritional powerhouse.
Okay, so first things first,
Sure.
when we say squash, what exactly are we talking about? It seems like there's
Yeah.
just so many different
So,
kinds.
right. So, in general, squash is a type of fruit.
Really?
Yeah, it's a fruit.
I did not know that.
But we treat it like a vegetable in cooking.
Yeah.
And it just comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes and flavors, and it's packed with vitamins and minerals and all that good stuff our bodies need.
Wow, I had no idea squash was technically a fruit. So for this deep dive, we're focusing on 5 of the most popular types.
Exactly. We'll be looking at butternut, acorn, spaghetti, delicata, and zucchini. Sometimes zucchini is called summer squash. Okay, so this is already a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Let's dive right in. Tell me about butternut squash. It's that classic one that everyone just kind of pictures when they think of squash, right?
Oh. It really is. That bright orange color and that sweet, nutty flavor, that's
Mhm.
pretty iconic. And it's just a nutritional gold mine. I mean, especially when it comes to vitamin A.
Oh, so that's why my grandma always told me that carrots and squash were good for your eyes. I knew she was onto something.
Absolutely. And it's
Uh,
got a ton of vitamin C for your immune system. And let's not forget about fiber. Butternut squash has a ton of fiber, which is really good for your digestion.
wow. So good for your eyes, your immunity, and your digestion. That's a lot of benefits packed into one squash.
Right.
Okay, so what's a good way to actually use butternut squash in cooking? I have to
Mm,
admit, I've always found that whole peeling and chopping thing a little intimidating.
yeah, I get that. It can seem daunting. A classic way to enjoy it, though, is to roast it and make it into a soup. You roast the squash with some onions and garlic, then blend it all up with some vegetable broth,
Okay.
season it up with salt and pepper, and you've got a creamy, comforting soup that's just perfect for a cold night.
How? Roasted butternut squash soup. That sounds delicious. I'm adding that to my list. Okay, what's next?
Let's move on to acorn squash.
Yeah.
You can recognize it by its dark green exterior and the ridges. This has got a fun history, too. Did you know that Native Americans have been cultivating this squash for centuries?
Really?
Yeah. They'd actually roast it whole over open fires, and that would bring out that naturally sweet, nutty flavor.
Wow. I had no idea acorn squash had such a long history. I love that connection to Native American culture. So, how do we enjoy acorn squash today?
Well, you can definitely still roast it whole, just like they did back in the day. But acorn squash is incredibly versatile. It's delicious baked, stuffed, or even mashed. And from a nutritional standpoint, it's got some really impressive benefits.
Okay, like what? Tell me more.
Well, it's a great source of vitamin C, just like butternut squash, but it also has a lot of potassium in it, which is fantastic for maintaining healthy blood pressure.
Oh, wow. So, it's good for your heart, too. This is really making me realize how much I've underestimated squash all these years. Okay, I'm ready for more. What's the next squash on our list?
Let's talk about spaghetti squash. This one is famous for its texture. When you cook it, the flesh separates into strands that, well, they look just like spaghetti noodles.
Wait, seriously, squash that turns into noodles. That's so cool. I'm picturing like a low carb pasta lover's dream come true.
You got it. It's super popular as a healthy alternative to pasta. But it's not just about the low calories either. Spaghetti squash also has folate and B6, which are both really important for your body to function.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was so nutrient rich. So, what's the best way to enjoy these magical squash noodles?
One of the simplest ways, and it's delicious, is to just saute the strands with some garlic and olive oil, then toss in some Parmesan cheese. It's really light and flavorful, and it's ready in just a few minutes.
Garlic, Parmesan, spaghetti squash. Sign me up. This is really making me rethink my whole dinner routine.
Right.
What other squash surprises do we have?
Next up is Delicata squash.
Yeah.
This one is a personal favorite of mine. It's got this creamy yellow skin with dark green stripes. And get this, the skin is edible.
Wait, you don't even have to peel it. That's amazing.
I know, right? It makes cooking with it so much easier. And it's got a great flavor, subtle sweetness, and pairs well with a variety of spices.
Yeah.
Speaking of the flavor, did you know that it can actually vary depending on where it's grown?
Really?
Yeah, the soil and the climate, they all affect the final flavor.
That's so cool. You know, it makes me want to try delicata squash from all different places and just see how they compare. Okay, so we've got the convenience, the flavor, but what about the health benefits?
Well, Delicata squash is a great source of beta-carotene, which our bodies convert into vitamin A, which is great for your skin and your eyes.
So it's good for your eyes and your skin. I'm sold.
Also got iron, which is important for your blood, and like most squashes, it's got a healthy dose of fiber.
Okay, so we've got the flavor, we've got the convenience, and a ton of nutrients. What's the best way to actually eat this amazing squash?
One of the simplest ways, and it looks really beautiful, is to roast it in rings. You slice it, toss it with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon, then roast it until it's tender, and you end up with these beautiful caramelized rings that are perfect as a side dish or a light lunch.
Roasted delicata squash rings with cinnamon. That sounds amazing. Okay, we've covered 4 incredible squashes. What's our final stop on this squash adventure?
And last but certainly not least, we have zucchini. It's often called summer squash.
Ah, zucchini.
And
I feel like that's like the gateway squash, you know? Like,
right,
even the pickiest eaters will eat zucchini. It's such a summer staple.
it is. And you can enjoy it raw, grilled, sautéed, baked.
Mm-hmm.
So many possibilities.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the health benefits that makes zucchini stand out from the crowd.
Well, it's very low in carbs and calories, which makes it really popular for people who are, watching what they eat.
Yeah.
And like many other squashes, it's a good source of vitamin C, which is great for immunity.
Okay, yeah, so that all makes sense, right? It's a healthy choice. But what makes it stand out from the other squashes? Like, what's its superpower?
Hydration.
Uh,
Zucchini has so much water in it. It's a great way to sneak in extra fluids, especially when it's hot out.
so zucchini is basically a hydrating vegetable.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome. I never thought of it that way.
And that mild flavor that it has makes it perfect for both savory and sweet dishes, which really adds to its versatility.
Wow, so zucchini really is like the chameleon of the squash world.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our final recipe idea, what's a really simple and delicious way to enjoy zucchini that really highlights its unique qualities?
I love turning zucchini into noodles. You know those zoodles everyone's talking about?
Oh yeah, zoodles. I've heard about those, but I've never actually made them.
Oh, they're so easy. You can use a spiralizer, but even a vegetable peeler works to make those long, thin strands. And you can enjoy them raw or sautéed.
Okay, that sounds really fun. So what's your go-to zoodle recipe?
I think one of my favorites is pesto zoodles with cherry tomatoes.
Okay.
You just toss the zoodles with your favorite pesto sauce and some half cherry tomatoes, and it's so light and flavorful and healthy.
That sounds like the perfect SAR meal. Light, fresh, full of flavor. This whole deep dive has been amazing. I came into this thinking that squash was basically just a side dish, but now I see that it's like the star of the show. And
Yeah.
it's so healthy.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
So we've learned about butternut squash, packed with vitamins, heart-healthy acorn squash with its ancient roots, versatile spaghetti squash that turns into noodles, and then delicata squash with that edible skin and amazing flavor. And then, of course, hydrating zucchini that can be used in so many different ways.
I love it. We've only scratched the surface, really.
Yeah.
There are so many more varieties out there, each with their own unique qualities.
Okay, so for our listeners out there who came to us wanting to learn about the health benefits of squash and get some recipe ideas, what are the key takeaways? Like, what do you really want them to remember from this deep dive?
Well, I think the most important thing is that squash is a nutritional powerhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's packed with vitamins and minerals and fiber.
It's like a multivitamin you can eat, and we've only just scratched the surface of all the amazing squash recipes out there.
Exactly. We've shared some simple ideas, but don't be afraid to experiment.
Right.
Roast it, bake it, stuff it, spiralize it. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. This deep dive has honestly changed how I think about squash. I used to think of it as just a side dish, but now I see it as a main player in a healthy diet. It's versatile, it's flavorful, it's healthy. I mean,
Wow.
what more could you ask for?
Exactly. And I think that's really what these deep dives are all about, right? Expanding your culinary horizons and,
Yeah.
inspiring you to try something new.
I'm definitely feeling inspired.
Good.
This whole deep dive has really opened my eyes to like a whole world of squash possibilities. I'm already thinking about how I can use them more,
I love it.
like in all my meals.
Yeah. And that brings us to our final thought for today. We've explored this incredible variety and all these amazing health benefits of squash,
Mm-hmm.
but I really think the real magic happens when you bring it into your own kitchen and you start experimenting.
Yeah, we've really seen that it's not just a humble side dish, it's like a culinary chameleon.
Right.
It can transform into soups and noodles and stuffed masterpieces and even sweet treats.
Exactly. So here's the challenge.
Okay.
This week, I want you to step outside of your comfort zone and try a new squash recipe.
Ooh, okay, I like it.
Maybe it's that roasted butternut squash soup that we talked about earlier,
Good.
or a stuffed acorn squash, bursting with flavor.
Mm.
Maybe a zucchini noodle dish,
Mm-hmm.
or even those beautiful Delicata squash rings. Just embrace the versatility of squash and discover your own culinary creations.
Yeah, who knows, maybe you'll find your new favorite way to enjoy this amazing vegetable.
Exactly.
And hey, if you're feeling adventurous,
Yeah.
why not try 2 new squash recipes this week? Let us know what you come up with. We'd love to hear about your squash adventures.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring the fascinating world around us.